welcome everyone for coming. My name is Sarah Bob. I'm the founding artistic director of the New Gallery Concert Series, and this is a rebroadcast today. At 3:15 will be a rebroadcast of our September Fragility and Resilience event, which is our first jump into the virtual world. And today you are here to talk with some of the people, the participants who made Fragility and Resilience happen and happen so well. So how this is going to run is that I'm going to introduce everyone or have them introduce themselves, maybe say who you are, where you're zooming from, and a little bit of how and why you wrote your piece. Just so everyone knows, in the concert, each composer introduces their piece as well. So there's lots of information in the chat. There are program notes. But this will, oh, there's Sheila. But this will give you a great chance to hear directly from these incredible artists, and also what I'm hoping is after introductions, there will still be time for you all to ask questions. Doria, our moderator, will be keeping an eye on that and letting us know how to chime in with that. So I'm going to start, and then I'm going to shut up. So, as I said, New Gallery Concert Series. We're in our 21st season, and the idea is to bring new music and new visual art together. One does not overpower the other. One does not need the other. It's to enhance the experience. I want to take this time also to thank the Boston New Music Festival for giving this opportunity to rebroadcast and also to put this forum together. It's really important for us to be able to engage with all of you and to share this work. So I am zooming from Boston, Massachusetts, the upstairs of my home in Jamaica Plain. I started New Gallery Concert Series 20 plus years ago to be able to keep doing what I love and working with artists that I love. I program in lots of different ways. Sometimes I just commission a composer and say, can you do it on this piece of art? Or I have a theme, or I just, and I say, go with this theme, artist, go with this theme, composer, or I just put it all together in some mad scientist kind of way. This particular event obviously is our first jump into the virtual world. And I'm a person who believes strongly in connection, and this was very uncomfortable for me. Very uncomfortable. So I knew I needed to be with people and artists and creative minds who not only knew the ropes, but could give me some virtual hugs along the way. And I definitely reached out to I chose Sheila Gallagher for, many reasons, but the three main components are talent, smarts, and trust. I knew that Sheila knows how to navigate this world. I know that her artistic vision is grand, and I knew that whatever I needed from the project, she was there for me too. It felt very, very good. So that's my opening for you and laying out the land. I'm going to actually turn it over to Sheila to introduce herself, and yeah, thank you all very much again.
Thank you, Sarah. So great to be here, especially I see friends in the attendees, and I'm super happy to have this opportunity to speak with the composers who I really haven't had a chance to talk to since our first broadcast, and I haven't gotten really their feedback on what they saw on this third thing that we created. I wanted to thank Sarah for trusting me, and I really wanted to thank the composers and performers for trusting me. They did not know what we were going to put out, so it was a big act of shared creativity, shared vulnerability, and shared trust to produce this third thing, which is a kind of this online combo platter of performance, some of it live, some of it pre-recorded, in this new cyber platform. Just a little bit of background. I teach art and contemporary art practice at Boston College. I have kind of a hybrid practice where I'm a kind of by any means necessary artist. I respond to the subject matter in the media that I think best fits it. So I draw with smoke, I compose with live flowers, and I really love collaborating. And for this project, I was coming, if you read the program notes, you'll see I was coming out of a very sort of surprising and deep and debilitating depression, which is kind of unlike me. And so when Sarah approached, around these, to see if I'd be interested in working with her on these themes of fragility and resilience, I jumped at the opportunity, and I hadn't heard any of the music before, but when I did, I felt like it resonated so much with my own experience and so much with this time. And that a lot of this music that you'll hear it's not easy. And but some of it's a great comfort. And it was a kind of a full, I think of this program as being a kind of a full emotional spectrum program. And I really tried to serve that spectrum first and foremost by listening before coming up with any imagery. And I'll stop right there so other people get a chance to talk. But once again, thank you, Sarah, for believing in this marriage, and thank you to the composers and the performers for putting it out there in a way that's just really strong.
I mean, everything, I think a lot of what NewGal wants to do is to represent the moment, reflect the moment. Originally my idea for September was, back in the day, I was like, oh, it'll be called Resurgence. And that's the worst title. But I next like to call on Aaron Trant because I know he has to leave soon. So tell us who you are, where you are, and a little bit about how your piece came to be.
I'm Aaron Trant. I'm a composer and also a percussionist. I'm in my percussion studio, also in Jamaica playing, because I'm also Sarah Bob's husband. So we're 2 floors apart at this point. But Sarah approached me last year about having a piece for the 20th anniversary event that was going to take place in March last year. To celebrate 20 years, and the venue that the performance was going to be at did not have a piano, and so Sarah had the idea of writing something for toy piano and cello, and we got the great Rhonda Ryder involved. So I just wrote a short little piece called Hymn for toy piano and cello with that in mind. The idea for me for this piece was to kind of keep it not too unlistenable. I guess I didn't want to try to push too many boundaries, but one thing I do like to experiment with is taking some kind of melody, whether it's relatively short or relatively simple, and have that melody in, and I kind of mess with the way the melody may or may not fit over either a harmonic progression or some sort of bass line, and I do that by either expanding the note values or shrinking the note values so that various parts of the melody fall over different parts of the harmonic structure at different times. So you end up kind of with a weird vertical harmonic progression that's kind of changing as the linear melody goes along. The melody I chose is a melody that's kind of floats around my head pretty frequently. And so I thought that this might be a good opportunity to take that chunk of melody and do something with it. And then I also felt that, writing for toy piano and cello might be a really interesting way to have these kinds of lines, because cello has such a versatile range. Could be kind of bass line like, or it could be very, vocal and melodic. So I felt that was a nice pairing with this particular melody that I chose.
And just quickly, because this is a question I've always meant to ask you, do you think, as a percussionist, does the toy piano hold any place for you? I mean, to me, it sounds like a glockenspiel, but I mean,
it's
what are you thinking when as a percussionist?
Yeah, I hate to say this because I'm sure there's many toy piano fanatics out there, but for me, toy piano is kind of like a toy glockenspiel. It doesn't have the depth of quality of sound, I don't think, that like a really nice Glock in an orchestral setting has. but it's also at the same time, it's also very intimidating because you play it like a piano. You can have big fat chords on it, or you can have, even though they kind of speak strangely because of the range. So it's not something that I'd thought about writing for. And it's also one of those instruments that sometimes gets thrown in the percussion section because nobody else wants to do it in the orchestra. If you're playing in an orchestra or a chamber piece or something, they're like, well, this has toy piano in it, I guess you have to do it. So it's also one of those kinds of instruments that I try not to think about too much, but it was actually really fun writing for it, especially in this context. It was really great.
Yeah, it's a great piece. Well, I'm thinking I should next go to Anthony and Itamar, mostly because I know this isn't on our program, but I know you've been composing for a toy piano lately. So I know that's a weird segue since you're probably not going to be talking about toy piano right now. But yeah, why don't you both tell us about yourselves and all that, and where you are and all that stuff. Oh, Itamar, I'm so glad you're here.
Yes, we're really glad to be here as well, and thank you for the invitation. This is Itamar.
Hello, hi Sarah, hi everyone. It's wonderful, wonderful to be here and finally see people in person as well. Well, half in person.
And Itamar, you are an MRI physicist.
Yeah, I'm a scientist and a frustrated pianist, so I'm not to be taken seriously as a pianist, but more so as a scientist.
He's an amazing pianist, and I am a composer primarily, but I play piano and I do stuff with experimental voice, and I'm a social justice artist as well. And when Sarah reached out to me about Caress, actually the project about fragility and resilience, I immediately thought I would try to make space for the Black trans people who have been murdered this year and use their deaths from 2020 as a symbol to also pay homage to all, not only Black trans people who have been murdered, but all trans people who have been murdered. And being Black myself and being so involved with social justice in the Black community, I thought I would hold space specifically for this demographic of people in this piece. And it's also been really wonderful to get the opportunity to have this commission, because that inspired me to donate to some organizations who are doing amazing work for the trans community on the whole, but especially for trans people of color. And so I definitely donated to the Sylvia Rivera Law Project and the Marsha P. Johnson Institute. And I have this long-standing relationship with some other trans people as well. So I gave some funds directly to them. And I hope that I can bring more awareness to not only this issue, but to these fantastic organizations who are doing amazing, amazing work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you haven't, Itamar and Anthony are also duo A&I, so you'll be hearing them and seeing them do their piece together, or Anthony's piece together. So thank you. Okay, who wants to go next? Who's not Evan? Okay, your turn, Stephanie.
Hi, so lovely to see these happy faces. It's wild that we all get the Partridge Family treatment over and over again, but you know, it's socialization, so I'll take it. So what you're going to hear today is Sarah playing her commissioned prelude, Morning Glory, from a set of 12 preludes called Flower Catalog. And if you look in the chat right now, I just put in the link for the Flower Catalog lookbook, which explains with prose and photos and lots of photos of flowers and the composer or the commissioners themselves more about this this whole work. So Sarah and I started talking about this piece almost a year ago now, and I asked her what her favorite flower was, and she had several, but she said about the Morning Glory that she said there's something so human and supernatural about the Morning Glory. They're temporary and small, but their presence is so strong. And so we decided to have this piece, which is, I think, a little almost over 5 minutes, um, and to have it go through several cycles. So there are a lot of climaxes, which I'm happy about. And Sarah plays it so gorgeously, and it's so moody, and it's been really lovely to have that piece be something that I was working on or finishing right when the lockdown began. And Sarah has been such an inspiration throughout this entire time, just keeping things moving and having these performances, and bringing in Sheila to have such an incredible experience visually also, as well as Arlie with my dear colleagues here. And so yeah, it's a gloomy day here in New York City, but it is a warm day in my heart. So thank you, Sarah. Oh, and in the lookbook, Sarah's on page 68. And Evan, I guess you're up.
Where are you?
No escaping Evan.
Oh, crap. So, yeah, so I mean, I apologize for trying to put this off as much as possible because my sleep schedule is incredibly off right now, as this is lockdown. And so I was just trying to get through coffee before I actually say anything. Um, so yeah, I guess well, I've put this off as long as I can. So anyway, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for having me here. Um, and you know, it was a really wonderful experience to have the concert a couple months ago now. Wow, it is 2 months ago. Jesus. And so you know, I mean, it's very difficult to speak about the Psalms, a because I can't work on them right now. You know, it's very difficult to do when you're not in the studio, and in addition to that, everybody who has kids right now is you know, basically their whole time is operating on Zoom with the kids, you know, trying to make sure that the kids are not, you know, looking at YouTube videos. So my esteemed and beloved engineer right now is currently dealing with that with his kids. So, you know, so I'm not in the world of the Psalms right now. I'm trying to write a book, and that obviously is going just amazingly. Let me just tell you. So, you know, what this is, the point of the Psalms ultimately, you know, I mean, it was a very weird thing. We started them in at the very beginning of 2016, and the Psalms. It's not that the Psalms are catastrophean um, works of literature, though that element is certainly there. But it was amazing how quickly the lines just sort of lined up with whatever was going on in the world at the time. And when I saw that, I said, "This is the project that I should be doing. This is the absolutely the right thing." So, you know, I mean, just as an example, you know, just as Trump and Putin, the collaboration was put out into the open, we were setting lines like, "The kings of the earth rise up, and the rulers take counsel together," and things like that. And that was unbelievable. It felt almost providential. And then, um, you know, the idea ultimately is that we are going to have all 150 by the time, say, about 50 years from now. You know, and even if we don't get through it, we're already further through the Psalms project than Sufjan Stevens ever got through the 50 States project. So we're doing pretty good. Um, but but you know what ultimately the reason to do the Psalms rather than a different project is a, you know, even if I'm not good enough for the project, I know the project is good enough because I know that the source material is great. No matter what John Mulaney says about the Psalms, because he has a weird bit about it, which is great, but you know, screw him. And then there's you know the other side of it is then that with the Psalm project, it's um, you know, what we're able to do is we're able to put everything into contemporary contexts. Think about somebody like Olivier Messiaen or Christophe Penderecki. What they're able to do is they're able to take very ancient texts, very ancient sentiments, and they are able to give it completely modern presentations. Instead of the source material is pre-mainstream, the the presentation, the actual musical content is post-mainstream, avant-garde, and that way it is able to meet in the middle. And that is how people get that together. By the way, if any of you know John Mulaney, I apologize, but the basic point is that when you're dealing with biblical stuff, what that enables you to do, when you're dealing with stuff that ancient, it enables you to bring in the most contemporary stuff, because the whole idea is to make it seem new and make it seem strange and make it seem different. And when you're able to, and so that's why ancient texts are so great when it comes to setting it with contemporary music. So anyway, that's all I got for now. I got that.
I think, I mean, all the music on this program, I guess I'm biased, is just simply, I mean, it's outstanding. Each one of you have created things that are so inspiring and moving, and make us all think hard. And specifically, I want to ask Stephanie and Evan about when you first saw Sheila's work with your music. So the first time you saw it was at the premiere in September. There was no talk before. This was a response from Sheila. How did you feel that impacted your work? Impact your work?
I mean, it was really exciting, and of course, I it was really lovely to be able to have my my eyes engaged as well, and also to see these things that, of course, my brain knew was coming in the music. To see them, those shapes, they're in Sheila's hands, in these materials, and also too, because of the materials that Sheila chose, to then have these lovely connections and associations being built also, because it wasn't just about the textures of the piano and the piano sonorities and like the morning glory, pedal textures themselves, but also we got I think this more earthy textures being put into it, and it was really fascinating, and I definitely was spending a lot of time looking at that too, and so I had to go over and listen to it a lot again to fully absorb also your experience, Sarah. It was so much, and it made, I think, the experience so, again, like that much more pithy and yeah, intense.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you.
Well,
Evan, you don't have to answer if you don't want. I'm kind of terrified what Evan's going to say, but because I spent the most time with Evans, because his work is so layered, and they're very different. 11, 8, and yeah.
I mean, I suppose I have to say I owe you an enormous debt of gratitude, because so many people since then have come up to me and said, Evan, I really didn't get your music until I saw the visuals.
Oh,
Thanks. Yeah, that's really what I wanted to hear. Thank you. So, but the answer is, I mean, I thought the visuals were great, and I especially liked the visuals for 14, which apparently was the one that you were most concerned about, because
and
I think you really got that. The whole point of that one. I mean, I don't know. I'm actually, I'm actually, nobody believes me when I say this, but I'm actually a very introverted person in real life. Nobody believes me when I say that, but I mean, so most of the Psalms are extremely serious, but 14 was just, I was just sort of, I just said, I mean, there's no one who, the main line of 14 is, there is no one who doeth good, not one. And the first thing I think of is, okay, I said, all right, let's just make a list. What are the 100 worst pop songs we could come up with? So that was the whole point of that, was to just pack as much crappy music into one piece of music as possible. So so you really nailed that it was supposed to be a joke song, if such a thing exists.
Yep.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So,
Can I ask you some questions about process? Just because I remember in some of your program notes, you talked about sort of putting the Jewish back into the Psalms. And, I grew up next to a Benedictine monastery. I spend some time at a Benedictine monastery in Ireland every summer, except for this summer. And so I'm quite familiar with with how the Benedictines and Gregorian chant have put music to the Psalms. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, about contemporary Jewishness and putting that back into the Psalms. And then I want to know where you start. I mean, when I'm starting, like say for Psalm 11, I started with the Adonais, right? And I knew that those were going to be the places that I was going to punctuate the visuals. But I want to know where you start. And then I had the theme of the birds. I kept that line
yes.
going through and ending. And we both, I know, I'm a big fan of this translation of the Psalms, which if anybody's interested, I mean, it's a great translation, and there's a lot in there. But yeah, well, I don't know where you start. Do you start with the music? Do you start with the words? Do you start with your own nightmares? What?
I mean, you always start with the words. I mean, it's impossible not to, just because, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just, the whole point, insofar as there is, as there is one, is to find musical equivalents to whatever the text is. I mean, it's just word painting is the idea. And the idea is to do it in a way that is completely different. I mean, I find it's not even that that I find it hard to, compose, the way other people do. I mean, I've certainly done it 100 times. I mean, that doesn't mean anything to say that, but I mean, I do find that this method of doing things is liberating for me, because basically it's like, it's the creative equivalent of farm to fork. You just, you think of it, you explain it. I mean, and I'll be the first to admit, I do not have the first idea about what the engineering process is, because I am terrible at that. I mean, that is something I am incapable of understanding. So, it is wonderful to have someone who can then, translate it. And, Matt has become an extremely close friend over time. And, so we have a working relationship, and it's almost like we have a shorthand at this point. Which does not mean that it does not take enormous amounts of time. It's basically like, I mean, I'm sure that, people who are at EarCom or something like that, it's similar, but it's basically like being in a musical laboratory, for lack of a better term. In terms of putting the Jew back in the, I mean, it's a weird and loaded question, because, the fact is, I mean, the way I've always put it, and, I've gotten into slight bits of trouble over this, is that, the Christian musical tradition is so long and so varied and so documented that, the way that we've always said it is that they have Messiah and I have a little dreidel. So the problem is that, with with the Jewish musical tradition, most of it's not written down. Most of it is oral. It's just sort of passed on. Even klezmer music, what we generally think of as Jewish folk music, the entirety of the klezmer recordings that we have, that's not sort of new klezmer, like newgrass, the Jewish equivalent of newgrass or something like that. The entirety of that can fit on basically, less than 10 CDs. So, it's not a long tradition, and you sort of have to make that tradition. You have to make Jewish music into something that you didn't know existed before, because the mystical concepts in Judaism are, generally speaking, in texts. They are not in sound. I mean, Christianity, it's not that Christianity doesn't have a theological tradition. They certainly do. But the theological tradition in Christianity is also supplemented by enormous amounts of visual art and enormous amounts of music. And in Judaism, it's fundamentally still just the text. It's still just, you know, it's the critical tradition. It's the rabbinical, the mystic rabbis. It's things like that. So you have to create oral equivalents to the kind of mystical concepts that only exist on the page. And I
No,
don't
I
know.
think that's so interesting what you're saying. I mean, I think your compositions really get at the kind of the marginalia, the midrashic, the additive quality of the Jewish theological tradition, where it's not, it's never a singular voice, right?
Thank
It's,
you so much.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know if I've done it particularly well, but I tried. You know, but thank you so
Pretty
much.
great. And I'm sorry to cut in, just I'm sorry we don't have like another hour or so to talk. We have about 4 minutes left, and I just wanted to see if anyone out there has a question. I also wanted to ask Anthony and Itamar, because actually that's one of the few pieces that Sheila did not touch. She saw it and she's like, I'm not touching that. It's
Beautiful. Yeah.
and how you came to create that beautiful, the piece, the composition is beautiful, but it's really a performance art piece. And how would that translate not in a video? Like, how could I perform that in the future and in a concert hall?
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking quite a bit about these questions. I knew that I wanted to work with Itamar, who is my partner as well, and knowing that he is a fantastic pianist, but also hasn't explored so much um, performance art and movement and using auxiliary instruments and stuff like that. I also wanted to push him to do stuff like this as well.
I'm always happy to be pushed.
and you know, we're in a committed relationship, and I was just thinking about, so one of the worst statistics about trans people is that their average lifespan is 35. So when a trans person reaches their 36th birthday, it's this big thing, you know? And I was thinking a lot about what that type of life expectancy does to just living every day. You know, how does a trans person feel just walking down the street or standing on a balcony and looking at a nice view, or even just looking in the eyes of somebody that you love? And that's why I put stuff like that in the video. So for those who will watch the concert, you'll see both Itamar and I walking down the street in front of our house and looking at each other's eyes and looking at a beautiful view from our balcony. And this is this was our caress to the trans community, and just trying to say, we know that these things mean so much more to you than they do for us, because sometimes we just take this stuff for granted. Um, so, and there is a piano score to this. So whoever wants to perform this, it does exist as a piano score.
Well, I was also wondering too, I mean, I'm just using me as an example, if I ever wanted to perform this, I would really, really need to feel comfortable with my partner, um, who would
Yeah,
not be my husband, right? I mean, so how to it's been fascinating how much I want to play it and how I would, well, not during Corona times, but I mean, how to make that work. It's so exquisite. And the could you talk? I know we only have. I know it's going to start in like 6 minutes. But can you talk a little bit about the paper in the video?
yeah, definitely. Well, you don't necessarily have to perform this piece with like a lover or somebody that you're in a relationship with. You can perform it with a friend as well. And for the
But
elements,
an
uh-huh,
element of intimacy, though, there still has to. I mean, absolutely, yeah. Which you
definitely,
in
definitely.
your chamber musician anyway, but
Yeah. It would be interesting to perform it with a stranger though, and just have a week of of workshops, you know, to get both of you in this mood. But in terms of the paper element of the piece, I wanted both Itamar and I to write a letter to one of the trans people that was murdered this year, or to all of them. And another big idea for this piece was to build in a sound and a performance altar to these murdered people and their ancestors. So the ritual of the paper is to write a letter and then to tear up the letter and have the brokenness of the letter be a release to these murdered trans people. And there's quite a bit of other ritual in this piece. So there's the shaking of shakers, there's movement, and then there's this meditative incantation at the end with vocalizations and improvisation. And all of this is really just to pay spiritual homage to these people and to keep their memory alive.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much. So I'm about to put my email address in if anyone has questions for me or the panelists, and I'll get it back to them. And the concert starts in 3 minutes. Just, I believe Doria put the link in right there. It's less than 75 minutes. If you haven't seen it before, enjoy. If you have seen it before, enjoy. And I'll be available on YouTube as well if you have any questions along the way. Thank you all so, so, so much. See you at the concert. Bye.